The waiter set the dessert down, and she smiled. Not the nervous, guilty smile I expected. Not even the forced smile you give when something isn't going according to plan. It was soft, relaxed, the kind of smile you wear when you believe no one in the world could possibly be watching. Because she didn't know I was sitting 12 feet behind her at the next table. And she didn't know I'd read the messages. Every single one. It wasn't even the affair that broke me. It was the poetry. The way she texted him about the smell of his neck. About how time didn't feel real when they were together. About how I still made her feel safe, but not alive. I hadn't eaten. I didn't plan to. I just ordered a glass of water and sat perfectly still in the corner booth, the one behind the wine rack. From there, I could see them clearly. Him, bold in a navy jacket. Her, in the red dress she told me she gave to Goodwill last year. It took all my strength not to walk over. But I didn't come here to confront. I came to document. To watch her the way she never realized I could. This wasn't jealousy. This was surgery. I needed to extract every last ounce of denial from my chest. She was holding his hand, stroking the back of it with her thumb. Then she whispered something that made him laugh. He leaned in, kissed her on the cheek. She looked happier than I'd seen her in months. It was unbearable. I reached into my coat pocket and unfolded the napkin. I had already written the words at home. I didn't trust myself to think clearly in the moment. Don't come back. I saw everything. I signed it with a simple dash. Not a name. A symbol. Like a character being written out of the script. I called the waiter over. I handed him the napkin. Give this to the woman in red when they ask for the check. No sooner. Then I stood up. Quietly. Left a 20 for the water. And walked out the side exit. The air outside felt colder than it should have. Somewhere behind me, they were still laughing. It wasn't until I heard the lock click that I realized how long I'd been sitting in silence. The TV was still on, muted, casting soft blue light across the living room wall. I hadn't moved from the couch. My phone was in my hand, but I wasn't checking it. I just kept opening and closing the Notes app, reading the message I almost sent her 100 times, but never did. Just tell me who he is. Instead, I waited. Like a coward. Like a broken watch that still thinks it has a purpose. Her key turned slowly, the way it always did when she didn't want to wake me. But I wasn't asleep. I hadn't even blinked properly in an hour. I knew that soft spin of metal better than my own heartbeat. I recognized her coat from the corner of my eye as she stepped in, the one she only wore on bad hair days. Her lipstick was perfect. No smudge, no mistake. It had been retouched recently. She didn't speak. She just closed the door gently, hung her bag, then froze when she saw me. Hey, she said, her voice calm. Too calm. I said nothing. She tilted her head. You're up late. Still, I said nothing. The pause stretched. She took a cautious step closer, maybe waiting for me to break the silence, to offer her some way out. A joke. A lie. Something we could both pretend to believe. Instead, I nodded toward the kitchen table. There, in the center, under the soft yellow glow of the pendant light, sat the napkin. The one I'd taken back from the waiter at the last second. I wanted to watch her read it. I wanted to see her face fall in real time. Her eyes landed on it. The handwriting unmistakably mine. She picked it up. Read it. And I swear on everything I still have left, she didn't flinch. She placed it back down, very gently, like it was glass. Then she looked at me with an expression I hadn't seen in years. Not anger. Not regret. Resignation. Like she'd already played this scene in her mind, and this was just the final act. Okay, she said softly. I'll pack a few things. I should have shouted. I should have asked who he was, how long it had been going on, why she wore the red dress she swore she hated. I should have begged, or cursed, or collapsed. But I didn't do any of that. I just watched her walk into the bedroom, like a stranger who had been living here rent-free. And all I could think was, she didn't deny it. Not a word. Not even a single, desperate lie. The silence after she closed the bedroom door was louder than any fight we could have had. I could hear drawers sliding open, zippers, the faint rustle of hangers. She wasn't crying. She wasn't pleading. She was methodical, as if this had been rehearsed. As if she knew she might have to leave one day, and she had a mental checklist for exactly how to vanish. I didn't follow her. I just sat there, still staring at the napkin on the table like it was the body of something I had killed. Maybe it was. Maybe the version of myself who trusted too easily had finally bled out for good. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. I heard the wheels of her suitcase click against the hardwood floor, slow and heavy. She paused by the front door. I didn't look at her. I couldn't. I don't even know if she looked at me. The door opened. Then she was gone. No goodbye. No slam. Just gone. I don't know how long I sat there afterward. Maybe an hour. Maybe more. The light above the table buzzed faintly, and for a few seconds, I considered unscrewing the bulb just to make the buzzing stop. But that would have required effort, and I had none left. My body felt like it had been hollowed out with a spoon. That's when my phone buzzed. I flinched. A single text from an unknown number. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. But what stopped my breath wasn't the sender, it was the message. You didn't deserve that. I've seen everything. I'm sorry. I stared at it for a full minute before my thumbs moved. Who is this? No response. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I refreshed the message screen 3 times like it would change something. But nothing came. Just that one text. That sentence. My mind immediately went to him, the guy in the navy jacket. Was this him? Guilt-ridden? Regretful? Had she told him she was married? Maybe she lied. Maybe he just found out tonight. But the tone didn't fit. It didn't read like it came from a guilty man. It read like it came from a witness. Someone who had been close enough to know, but far enough to stay hidden. I dialed the number. Straight to voicemail. No name. Just a robotic voice reciting digits. I hung up. Then I checked my email. And that's when things got worse. Buried in my spam folder, as if the universe was trying to shield me from it, was a message from a burner account. No subject. No body. Just a Google Drive link. I clicked it. It opened a folder. Inside were 3 things. A screen recording of text messages, a voice memo, and a video. The screen recording showed her contact name at the top, Mirabelle Crescent Moon. The texts were raw, unsentimental. Plans, times, instructions, mentions of hotels, back entrances, payments. My wife wasn't just cheating, she was coordinating, managing, scheduling like it was her job. The voice memo was short. A whisper, maybe recorded outside somewhere. He doesn't suspect anything. I've got Fletcher completely numb. I think he'd rather pretend than ask questions. Honestly, it's sad. Her voice. Her actual voice. I couldn't breathe. My throat was dry and my ears rang like someone had fired a gun beside my head. And then the video. It was filmed through glass, probably from inside a parked car. The angle showed her, standing in a parking garage, hugging someone. But not the guy from the restaurant. This was someone older. Balding. Thick coat. He looked familiar. And then it clicked. The man was my boss. My actual, real-life boss. And Mirabelle was kissing him like they'd done it 1,000 times before. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a second. I just sat there on the living room floor, knees pulled up, the glow of my laptop painting everything in cold light. That video played in my head over and over like a looped nightmare. Mirabelle, my wife, in the arms of Grant Baylor, my direct supervisor, my mentor, the man who gave me my last promotion, the man who gave the speech at our wedding about how he'd never seen 2 people more right for each other. That man. I tried to piece together the timeline. The business trips she told me not to worry about. The late hours she claimed were yoga. The sudden networking brunches he started inviting me to, only to cancel them last minute. Everything had been planned, coordinated, and worst of all, I think he knew I'd never question it. I'd been so desperate for approval, both at work and at home, that I turned blind compliance into a lifestyle. Loyalty, they called it. But now it just looked like quiet self-destruction. At 7:03 a.m., I got dressed and went into work. Not because I wanted to. I had no idea what I was doing, but because I needed to see him. I needed to look that man in the eyes and pretend like I hadn't seen anything. I wanted to know how far he'd go with the lie. I wanted to give him rope. When I got to the office, he was already there. Early, like always. The glass walls of his office glinted with sunlight, casting long reflections across the polished floor. He waved at me as I walked past, smiled, said, "Mornin', champ. You good for the 9 o'clock?" I nodded like a puppet. The 9 o'clock was a budget review, long, boring, lifeless. But that morning, every word that came out of his mouth sounded like static. I watched his lips move, his hands gesture, his jokes land with the usual fake chuckles from around the table. Meanwhile, my brain was somewhere else entirely, playing side-by-side images of my wedding day and that parking garage video like a deranged split screen. After the meeting, he pulled me aside. "You all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." I looked at him. and for a brief second, I almost laughed. A ghost? No, I'd seen something much worse. I'd seen who he really was. Didn't sleep well? I muttered. He nodded sympathetically. That time of year, huh? I get it. I could see it in his eyes, not a flicker of guilt. No fear. Either he didn't know I knew, or he genuinely didn't care. Either possibility made me nauseous. I needed air. I walked out of the office and into the stairwell, needing someplace enclosed, away from cameras, away from them. That's when I got the second message. Same number. Check the folder again. Something new. I opened the drive link. My hands were shaking. A new file had been added. No title, just a timestamp. 3 days ago, 11:47 p.m. It was a screenshot this time. An email draft. Unsent. To Grant. Baylor at *****. Subject. Blank. He's starting to notice. I think last night was a mistake. Call me. We need to figure this out. If he finds out about the money. That's where it cut off. The money? I stared at the screen like it was written in another language. What money? I never saw money. I never touched anything outside our regular paychecks. We shared a joint account. I did the budgeting. She never handled bills. So what was she talking about? Unless it wasn't our money. Unless something else had been moving behind my back for a long, long time. And suddenly, I remembered something. 3 months ago, HR had flagged a small discrepancy in a vendor invoice under my name. Just a few $100s. I hadn't submitted it, but Grant told me not to worry, said he took care of it. I didn't think much of it back then. But now it looked like I'd been turned into the perfect scapegoat. It started with a folder on my desktop called Tax Docs 2022. I hadn't opened it in months, probably not since we filed jointly last spring. But now, with the email screenshot fresh in my mind, and that line about the money scratching at the inside of my skull like a trapped animal, I knew I had to look at everything I thought I understood through a different lens. I opened the folder and stared at the spreadsheets. Rows of numbers, deduction codes, income entries. I'd made them myself. I trusted them. But now I had to assume every cell was a lie. At first, everything looked normal. Too normal. But then I found something strange in the downloads folder. A PDF with a name like a key smash, _remit_August, Flet 2x0. PDF. It wasn't created by me. The metadata said it had been modified 6 weeks ago. I opened it, and my stomach clenched. It was a wire transfer. $14,200. Sent from a shell company I'd never heard of, to my name, routed through a bank in Nevada, tied to an LLC that had a weirdly familiar name. Miranox Solutions LLC. My blood ran cold. Miranox, a mashup of our names. Mirabelle and Knox, my middle name. A nickname we used to joke about years ago when talking about maybe starting something together, a business, a brand, a life. It had been a stupid idea back when we were still dreaming. But now it was real. She'd actually registered it. I checked the public records. Her name was listed under alternate contacts. Mine? Not at all. That was the moment I realized I hadn't just been cheated on emotionally or physically. My identity had been hijacked. And I had absolutely no idea how deep the paper trail went. The next morning, I called out of work, citing a family emergency. Grant didn't even push back. He just replied, "Take all the time you need." I could hear the subtext in his voice. Take enough time to forget what you think you know. I spent the entire day digging. I cross-referenced the bank accounts. I requested login activity from our shared online statements. And somewhere buried beneath a list of automatic payments and groceries, I found 2 recurring transfers marked business services, both going out monthly to what appeared to be consulting firms. But those firms didn't exist. The websites were placeholders. Empty. Just logos and a contact email that bounced back. But both accounts were registered using my email, specifically the alternate Gmail account I hadn't used since college. The recovery address? Hers. I was being set up. Framed. Used as a financial front for whatever scam they were running, and they'd done it all under my nose. What better alibi than the oblivious, loyal husband who alphabetized spices and paid the internet bill? I felt like I was unraveling. My head hurt from trying to hold timelines, transactions, and betrayal all at once. I needed clarity. Proof. Something that couldn't be denied. So I called someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year, my cousin Lane. She's a forensic accountant, the kind the IRS hires when they think someone's cooking books at a corporate level. We weren't close, but I didn't need family warmth right now. I needed cold, precise information. When I told her what I'd found, she didn't hesitate. Send me everything. Right now? All of it. Don't delete anything. Don't log into anything else. And Fletcher? Keep your phone on you. All the time. Her tone was serious in a way that made my skin crawl. Lane didn't do drama. If she was alarmed, something was really, deeply wrong. An hour later, she texted me again. Do not go to work tomorrow. I'm driving to you. They're laundering through your name. You could be liable. And this wasn't just her. There's a third person. Lane arrived just before noon, wearing dark glasses and a black windbreaker like she was headed to a crime scene instead of my apartment. She didn't even knock, just walked in with her laptop under her arm and a face like she hadn't slept. I hadn't either. The bags under my eyes weren't just from the all-nighter. They were from years of not asking the right questions. She set up on the kitchen table, cleared away an old cereal bowl like it was a bomb she had to disarm, and opened 6 tabs in under 20 seconds. I need you to listen to everything I say, she told me, not looking up. And do not talk unless I ask a question. I nodded. She started typing like her fingers were fueled by fury. Whoever built this web, they knew what they were doing. The transactions are spread out across multiple dummy LLCs. You've got tax liabilities coming your way that could bury you. You're looking at wire fraud, false filings, potentially even identity theft if you don't get ahead of this. I didn't do any of that, I said, my voice cracking. I know, she snapped. But they've made it look like you did. On paper, you're the puppet. They just kept their hands far enough back to stay out of frame. She turned the screen toward me. This is the signature they've been using. I leaned in and stared at it. It was mine. Except it wasn't. Not quite. The loops were too clean, the slant too perfect. It was a digital recreation, traced from one of the PDFs I'd signed last year. They lifted it from our tax returns, I whispered. I signed them electronically. Exactly, Lane said. And you know what's worse? Your old recovery email got a password reset alert from a web hosting platform. Miranox's hosting site. 3 weeks ago. That's when it hit me. 3 weeks ago was the night she asked if I could run to the store for dish soap. I remember because it was pouring rain and I asked her why she couldn't go. She said she was finally settling into a hot bath and wanted to relax. I stood in line for 20 minutes that night. When I got home, the apartment smelled like eucalyptus and lavender, and she was watching a cooking show, smiling like nothing had ever been wrong. Lane kept clicking. I cracked the secondary email link to the Miranox accounts. Want to guess what the password was? I didn't speak. Your birthday, but backwards. And the security question was my name. She was mocking you. She thought you'd never dig this deep. I wanted to throw up. I felt like every part of my life had been drafted by someone else and handed to me as a script. My marriage, my finances, even my memories. I couldn't stop thinking about our anniversary dinner last year, how she seemed distracted, how she said her phone kept buzzing from group texts. That was the night she stepped away from the table for 15 minutes to take a call. She said it was work. It wasn't. It was Grant. And now, apparently, someone else. Who's the third person? I asked finally, barely able to force the words out. Lane hesitated. She clicked another tab and turned the laptop again. It was a series of messages from a private forum. Encrypted. The usernames were masked, but the threads had timestamps, IP logs, and snippets of discussion, all flagged by a financial forensics tool Lane used in her work. The third player had been feeding them information. Financial forecasts, employee schedules, internal tools. Whoever it was, they had access to our company's back-end systems. Not just HR files. They had engineering access, product dev, and then I saw it. An internal memo, one I wrote months ago, about a failed budgeting model. One that only 4 people in the entire company had ever seen. It was never emailed, never uploaded, just printed once and handed to Grant in a closed-door meeting. That file had made it to the forum 2 weeks ago, which meant one of the 4 people had uploaded it. And I knew exactly who it was. When you've been betrayed badly enough, there's a point where your brain stops asking why and starts asking how much longer you have. That was me now, sitting across from someone I used to carpool with, someone who once helped me move a futon up 3 flights of stairs, and wondering whether they were about to put the final nail in my coffin, or if they already had. His name was Riley, quiet, unassuming, borderline invisible in meetings. We'd been hired in the same quarter, survived 2 rounds of layoffs together, and sat 1 cubicle apart for 3 years. I'd never suspected anything. He was the kind of guy who brought 2 thermoses of coffee to work, one for himself and one in case someone forgets theirs. He lent me a tie once for a surprise client meeting. I called him a friend. Lane had triple-checked the logs. Riley was one of the 4 who'd had access to that confidential memo, the one only Grant and I had read in hard copy. The digital version had been watermarked for internal traceability. That watermark showed up in the files posted to the hidden forum, along with Riley's department-specific timecodes. I didn't want to believe it. I needed to see his eyes when I brought it up. So I texted him, "Lunch today? Just us. Need to talk." He replied in under a minute. "Of course. Usual spot?" We met at a small noodle place near the office, the kind with faded posters on the wall and no background music. The hum of the fridge and the quiet clatter of chopsticks were the only sounds for the first few minutes. I kept my hands wrapped around my water glass to hide the tremble in my fingers. He smiled like nothing was wrong. He even asked how Mirabelle was. That's when I knew. That's when everything inside me turned to ash. No one had asked me about her. Not since the night she left. The office had gone awkwardly silent about it, treating it like a death no one wanted to acknowledge. But Riley had casually, deliberately, brought her up. "I think you already know how she is," I said, eyes fixed on him. He blinked, but didn't look surprised. "I figured," he murmured. "You've looked wrecked lately." I leaned forward, lowered my voice. "I know about the forum. I know about the files. I know you uploaded them." His face went still. No anger. No denial. Just the barest flicker of disappointment. Then, a long exhale through his nose. "It wasn't supposed to get this far," he said softly. That sentence detonated something in me. I gripped the edge of the table. "You're going to explain everything, Riley. Every damn piece of it. You owe me that." He nodded slowly and spoke without looking at me. "It started small. I was broke. Drowning. Grant offered me a side project, told me it was gray hat, nothing illegal. Just passing along budget strategy drafts, maybe a few vendor lists. Said it was to help a private client group optimize their portfolio. He paid cash. Thick envelopes. I told myself it wasn't real espionage. Just numbers." I stared at him, stunned. "You were selling internal files. Real company documents." He nodded, still calm. Then he introduced me to Mirabelle. I nearly flipped the table. "She was already involved?" I asked. "She was the project. She pitched it. She built the shell companies. He just funded them. She was the one who figured out how to route everything through you. She called it whitening the paper. You were clean, boring, invisible. That made you perfect." I went cold all over. So this wasn't just cheating. It wasn't just a side business. It was designed around me. He finally looked me in the eye. "She said you'd never notice. That you trusted her so completely, you wouldn't even check your own statements." I wanted to hit him, to scream. But the rage wasn't hot anymore. It was cold, sharp, precise. Like a needle stitching shut the last wound. "She left me," I whispered. "No fight. No excuses. Just packed up and walked." "That's because the project's over," he said. "You were the funnel. Once the final payment cleared, they shut everything down. She was supposed to disappear. And you? Why are you still here?" He gave a weak smile. "Because I think they're going to frame me next. And unlike you, I don't have a cousin in forensic accounting." The air between us felt radioactive. I stood up slowly, tossed a 20 on the table, and leaned in close. "You're going to testify, Riley. You're going to give Lane everything. Every email. Every payment. Every login." His smile faded. "You think that's going to save you?" I stared at him. "No, but it'll destroy them." It's strange how quiet a victory can feel. After weeks of unraveling lies, coded emails, forged documents, and the brutal realization that the people I loved most were using me as a living disguise, I expected something cinematic. A courtroom showdown, or at least sirens. Instead, it happened on a Tuesday morning, in a beige office, with coffee going stale and a ceiling light that flickered every 4 seconds. Lane sat across from 2 federal agents. I was there, silent, holding the binder of printed evidence like it was a sacred object. Riley had turned everything over. Emails, payment records, a backup drive, even screenshots of private texts between Mirabelle and Grant, detailing how they'd timed my promotions, weaponized my routines, and moved the money through my accounts like I was a piece of office furniture. The agents barely blinked. I guess they'd seen worse. Grant was arrested first. Wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. He tried to act confused, shocked, even, but the evidence was too tight, too polished. Lane had gift-wrapped the entire scheme with timestamps, IP trails, and audio files. Mirabelle, she wasn't arrested. Not yet. She ran. Disappeared. Her apartment lease was terminated. Her bank account drained. Last I heard, she booked a flight to Buenos Aires under a different name. But they'll find her. The federal guys said as much. And even if they don't, she'll always be running. Always looking over her shoulder. I don't envy her. For a while after everything came out, I didn't leave my apartment. I avoided everyone. Turned off my phone. Slept on the couch. Cried when the dishwasher beeped for no reason. The betrayal hadn't just come from my wife, my boss, or Riley. It had come from me, too, from the version of myself who ignored the warning signs because the illusion was more comfortable than the truth. But slowly, I came back. One morning, I opened the blinds. Another day, I went for a walk. I updated my resume, reached out to a nonprofit I used to volunteer with, and offered to help with their annual audit. I started saying yes to invitations again. I deleted old emails. I bought new sheets. It's stupid how much of healing is just making small, mundane choices every day until you realize you're no longer broken, just different. Then, 2 weeks ago, Lane called and said the IRS officially cleared my name. No charges. My record was clean. And as for Grant's firm, it dissolved under the weight of the scandal. Half the board resigned. The other half are probably still lawyering up. I was sitting on a bench outside the courthouse when I realized I hadn't thought about Mirabelle in 3 whole days. Not once. Not her laugh. Not the red dress. Not the note I almost left her at that restaurant. And when I did think of her, it wasn't with pain. It was with relief. Because everything she thought would ruin me freed me. Today, I live in a smaller place. Just me. No shared closets. No fake accounts. No shadows in the corners of the bedroom. And yesterday, I met someone, a woman at a bookstore who asked if I'd ever read the novel she was holding. I hadn't, but I said yes. She smiled. I smiled back. It's nothing. Or maybe it's everything. But for the first time in a long time, I'm okay with not knowing. Because I know who I am again. And I'm never letting anyone write my story but me.